Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 95. The title is Honor Culture. Before we jump into it, I didn't mention this yesterday, but I love to give a shout out to a couple of great organizations that are supporting the law enforcement community. Number one is the the Overwatch Collective. It's a nonprofit and podcast that funds therapy sessions and supports mental health initiatives for our first responders, our veterans, and their families. You can check them out, make a donation, and buy some gear over at the overwatchcollective.com. And number two, I'd love to give a shout out to Blue Badge Coffee Company, because the mission of Blue Badge Coffee Company is to provide their customers not only with the best, highest quality premium coffee that their money can buy, but to also take a portion of each sale and donate it to law enforcement agencies around our great nation to assist them in funding or maintaining peer support and wellness programs for their officers. Those programs are crucial for the physical and mental well-being of hardworking law enforcement officers in agencies across our country. And they're some of the first things that get cut when budgets get cut, when agencies get defunded, and on and on. So check them out and support that incredibly important mission at bluebadgecoffee.com. Again, those are two great organizations that are supporting our law enforcement community. And this podcast is designed to support our law enforcement community as well by teaching some tips, tools, and tactics to give you greater resilience to get through your job and your life in law enforcement. And if you happen to be here from a different first responder community, welcome. We're glad you're here too. And you will find some of those same tips, tools, and tactics in this podcast that I think are impactful for law enforcement. If you happen to be a paramedic, if you happen to be a first responder, if you happen to be a firefighter, if you happen to be a dispatcher, if you happen to work in a prison setting, whatever it is, you're going to find the stuff in this podcast that's going to help you become more resilient. And that's really what we need. And if you happen to be in any other profession that operates in a fast, uncertain, and rapidly evolving environment, Stoicism is the philosophy for you as well, and we're glad you are here. So as I said, we're talking about honor culture today. Let me start you out with a quote from Epictetus. There is only one thing for which God has sent me into the world, and that is to develop every kind of virtue or strength, and there's nothing in the world that I cannot use for this purpose. Now, Epictetus, we probably have, it's hard to say if we have more from Epictetus or Seneca, probably more from Seneca. But Epictetus, we have a ton of writings, and it wasn't that he wrote it, but it was his students took notes as he lectured. He was a prolific lecturer, and many of his students kind of reproduced his lectures. And so we have that in his discourses, and we have that in his, what else do I have here? There's several that are kind of famous, like collections of his writings and his speeches. And he believed that the ultimate purpose in human life is to cultivate virtue, right? That was his he talked a lot about the dichotomy of control, but he talked a lot about cultivating virtue and inner strength. And that really what we're here on this earth for is to fulfill that divine purpose, right? Now, this mission, of course, for me, it brings to mind the concept of honor. Honor culture is something that if you're in law enforcement, you probably understand, but it's often associated with kind of traditional communities where social cohesion or reputation, communal values hold a significant importance. And it's kind of gone away in the 21st century. But think about things like the Boy Scouts. That's kind of based on honor culture, right? We talk a lot about in the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts about doing your duty, being honor bound, to live by a certain code. That's what the concept of honor is. Border Patrol, I'll get into this in a second, but their motto is honor first. So it still exists in the kind of communities that first responders exist in, right? And individuals bound by the traditions of one of these communities, they're expected to uphold a certain moral and behavioral code. That usually includes concepts like loyalty, bravery, honesty, and virtue. All of us, like if you look at your agency motto, it probably has some reference to loyalty, bravery, honesty, virtue. And failure to adhere to this code can result in social ostracism. It can result in loss of reputation. It can even result in violence in some of these cultures. Think about the honor culture in Appalachia, the Hatfields and McCoys, those sort of feuds that exist over generations oftentimes come out of honor culture, feeling like somebody disrespected or was less than virtuous to you, and that the need to uphold your family's honor led to those sort of feuds, right? It can lead to violence. And while that permeated America, in its early years, think about all the duels like Hamilton and Burr. That was commonplace, to duel over honor, over the sense that your honor had been impugned by somebody's speeches or speaking, would lead to people dueling, right? That's honor culture at its highest level. And that permeated our early foundation of America. And it's faded, in the 2.5 centuries since. But an emphasis on that importance of honor and duty is still existing in culture-bound institutions like the military, like law enforcement, like the first responder community. In these communities, it still functions as a major factor of our reputation, especially as it relates to our commitment and expectation to perform our duty. And that's what Epictetus is talking about here. He's talking about, it is my duty to develop every kind of virtue and strength. I am honor-bound. There is nothing in the world that I cannot use for this purpose, to build myself up as a virtuous and strong individual. And that is really what we should be doing every single day. As I said, the United States Border Patrol's trademark motto is honor first. And they use that to define their organizational culture as having, quote, the highest standards of integrity and professionalism, end quote. That's what they say to everybody, all 20,000 of them that suit up and wear that green every single day and go stand their turn at the U.S. border, that go protect us from dangerous people and dangerous things. They are bound by an honor code. The cadet code at West Point that I've talked about on this podcast before. A cadet will not lie, cheat, nor steal, nor tolerate those who do. That is an honor code. That is saying that I am tying my reputation to this code of honor. Honor demands, as Epictetus is telling us here, that we do our duty with integrity, that we do our duty with virtue, that we build up inner strength. That requires us to constantly work and develop that. We have to constantly use everything at our disposal to build up that virtue and strength. And that's what Epictetus is telling us here. And I can't think of a better way to look at the Stoic philosophy than to see it as a challenge to live by a code in which every single day you wake up and you look at those 4 virtues. You look at courage, you look at temperance, you look at wisdom, you look at justice, and you ask yourself, what am I doing today to live to honorably and with virtue and integrity, live to that highest standard that I'm setting for myself? So what I want you to do is, I want you to ask yourself, and this can be our journal prompt, am I developing virtue and strength so that I can live with honor? Ask yourself that. What am I doing to be an honorable person? Maybe your organization has a code similar to Border Patrol, but if you don't, maybe use that one. Maybe put that as your standard. Honor first. That is my code. Honor first. And what does that mean? It means that I will live with the highest standards of integrity and professionalism. And what does that mean? That means that every single day when I'm practicing these Stoic virtues, when I am looking in the mirror, when I'm grading myself every night and asking myself how I did, I'm asking myself, am I doing everything, as Epictetus said, in the world to create more strength and virtue in myself so I can live at that highest standard of integrity and professionalism? Guys, we don't get to a higher level of ourselves. We don't live at a higher level for ourselves if we don't grade ourselves, if we don't ask ourselves, honestly, am I doing what I can to develop greater virtue, to develop greater strength so that I can live with honor? So ask yourself that today. What am I doing? And then give yourself that honor code. What is my honor code? What am I going to do? And like I said, if you need one, borrow the Border Patrol's. The highest standards of integrity and professionalism. That's what their honor code is. So borrow it from them if you need one for yourself, or look at the military unit you served in or the department you're serving in, find out what their code is and ask yourself, are you meeting the standards of that honor code? That's what I got for you today, folks. If you want to support this podcast, pick up a copy of my book, In Valor, 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you get your books. It's a great way to practice this. It's a great resource for law enforcement, first responders, or anyone who operates in a fast, uncertain, and rapidly evolving career to practice this philosophy daily, to develop that code of conduct based on the 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism, to apply it to your life so that you can live to your highest standards of integrity and professionalism on a daily basis. So pick up a copy of that if you need some practice, or listen to the listen to the podcast, or subscribe over at Substack for the free podcast to come to your email inbox 4 times a week that you can do at stoicresponder.substack.com. Finally, if you want to support this podcast, the easiest thing you can do that doesn't involve any financial commitment on your part is to just like, share, and subscribe so that others can learn what we are doing here. Hope that helps, folks. Got 2 more episodes for you this week. You are, until next time, out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.